Welcome to the Stewardship Leader Podcast, brought to you by the Christian Stewardship Network. CSN exists to encourage, teach, and connect church and stewardship leaders and help them build and lead healthy stewardship ministries in their church. You can learn more about CSN at christianstewardshipnetwork.com. Hey everyone, thank you for joining us. My name is Leo Sabo, and I will be your host for today's conversation. On today's episode of Stewardship Leader, I'm joined by someone who really needs no introduction because he's been the host of the Christian Stewardship Network podcast over the past 2 years. Yes, I am referring to Pastor George Thompson. George, welcome, my friend. It's so good to have you on this episode today.
Leo, I'm so glad to be here, and I'm excited about what's happening with CSN.
Thank you, George. I definitely share that sentiment. So you've been involved with CSN for many years, but specifically hosting the CSN podcast, for which we are very grateful. Tell us, what have you enjoyed most about this role, and what have you learned from doing it?
Leo, I've enjoyed being the host of the CSN podcast, and I'd probably say the number one thing is just interviewing the guests. You know, as at Faithful Central Bible Church, where I'm the pastor of stewardship and finance, I've always learned how to do certain things, and I've always come to conference, I've learned certain things. But it's great to be able to interview people and be able to talk to them and find out, one, what their struggles were and how they overcame them, and also the ability to be able to teach and share with other leaders and pastors how to be good stewards and stewardship pastors, and also to penetrate that in their churches.
That's really good. And it's really what CSN is all about, isn't it? It's about learning from others by engaging with others. It's really the mission of CSN is to connect with other stewardship leaders. So that's great. I'm glad that that's been a benefit to you as you've done this job.
Right. And one of the advantages of doing that, Leo, is that, so like we all have a goal, right? We want to teach a class, or we want to help people become good stewards. But it's like, how do we do it? What are the mechanics? And then you can do things where you can try to figure it out yourself, or you can find out from people who have done it in the past. And just finding out the different ways that people do it has just been very encouraging and exciting. That's number one. Also, number two is that everyone has come from different backgrounds. Like, everyone doesn't come from the financial industry. People were teachers, people were engineers, people were, come from different areas. And then to watch how they do that, and then also how the testimonies also of how people are blessed.
Yeah.
People that learned how to get out of debt, or learned how to be able to repair their marriage, or just be able to participate in the area of giving, and then watching what God has done in their lives.
Yeah, that's really good. I mean, I do see so many different type of people that God calls into this specific ministry. It's not the typical ministry path that most pastors take into ministry. In fact, I think most people that I know that have come into this ministry had no really aspirations to be a pastor or a stewardship minister, but somehow God tapped them on the shoulders and said, you've got the right gifting for this specific ministry that I've called you to. And that's certainly been my story. And some people are in the financial services industry, and then they see the need that it's so great, especially in the church, that they step up and say, somebody needs to teach about this. This is really crucial to our discipleship. So very grateful for you. We've known each other for a long time. And I think what initially brought us together has also kept us together, which is our relationship through the Christian Stewardship Network. It's our yearly events that we get to do, times when you've come in and sat down with me as we're trying to both build stewardship ministries in our own churches. And that's really meant a lot to me because I learned from you, and I think we have done what CSN is so well known for, which is a iron sharpens iron type of relationship. You've also become a CSN Champion several years ago, and of course, hosting the CSN podcast has been a big part of it as well. And I just want to say this, George, you have been a tremendous asset for us at CSN. I know you've been part of the family, so you've not done it because it's been just your job. You've done it because you love it. But I just want to acknowledge the hard work you put in, the faithfulness with which you served. And I know that everybody on the board of directors, of course, everyone that knows you understands the love that you have for this ministry. I so appreciate all the work you've done. We have a bunch of videos that you have interviewed different people in the ministry. And we have all that content on our website at christianstewardshipnetwork.com under video resources. And I'd love for people to really look at and see some of the things that you've been able to do and some of the interviews you've done and some of the really great content that CSN has been able to amass through your work and through these interviews that you've done. So thank you for the hard work you've put in. Thank you for the just selfless way that you've served, man. You have been an amazing asset to us. And I just want you to hear that from me. I so appreciate the foundation you've built and everything that you've done for CSN. And I know that you'll continue to be part of that, so I'm not saying goodbye, but I just want to acknowledge you for all this great work that you've done. Thank you.
Oh, Leo, you almost make me cry. First of all, I want to say thank you for the kind words and just I appreciate it. But also, I want to say this though, my infection and why I like doing this and teaching this is quite simple. I've learned so much from the Christian Stewardship Network. I actually came to the first one I came to was actually in Kentucky, and I came and I thought I was the only stewardship pastor in the country. And then a gentleman, which we both know, Robert Morris, came to minister in the forum to us. And he was ministering, and then he saw me do the offering. Then he pointed at me when I was running. He goes, "We have a guy just like you at our church." I said, "Really?" And he said, "Yeah." And he told me, Gunnar Johnson. And then then he gave me his phone number, and I called him, and then I met him at that conference. And I've learned so much from Gunnar, from you, Chris, Dave, and then just so many people. I can't even count the names at CSN. And that's one of the also reasons why I enjoy doing the podcast and why these are so important is that I want other people to be able to learn. If you just took 10% of what other people, and you got that from 10 different people, it'd make you 100% better.
Yeah.
And it's been so helpful to me. And I just want other people to be able to see that. So they'll be able to, see that through the videos, but then also just by getting involved. So thank you thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, you are certainly welcome, George. And again, it is really, really meant from the heart. You have done tremendous work and just want you to know how much we appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Also, but hey, just want to ask you a couple questions, Leo, if it's all right.
Sure.
Can you tell us a little bit about your journey in working with CSN and then where we are now?
Well, as you know, CSN has been part of my life for many years. The first annual forum that we hold, I attended in 2007. It was just after I started a full-time position at Gateway Church as one of the stewardship pastors working with Gunnar Johnson. And the transformation that happened with me as I started to rub shoulders with like-minded stewardship leaders, because again, like you, I thought I was one of a very few people. I didn't think I was the only one, but I was one of a few. Back in 2002, 2003, when I started putting my toe in the water in this ministry and starting to serve, there really was no stewardship pastor that I knew of. I met Gunnar in 2004, and he was the only stewardship pastor I knew at that time. So then when I came to the forum, I found about 20 more. And that was really exciting because I thought, okay, I can learn from somebody. Because prior to that, coming into the ministry, I really didn't have a lot of confidence because I didn't have a lot of experience. So coming in as a financial coach, having some experience with that, really knowing how to walk somebody through the practical side of managing money, that was never something I really struggled with because I had been in the trenches, I've done that, and I knew how to lead somebody out of it. But on the spiritual side, I kind of struggle. How do I have the spiritual authority to stand and teach someone the Bible on money? And it was a bit daunting to me. So finding like-minded leaders that had somewhat gone ahead of me and have paved the way really helped me to then engage these leaders and talk with them and find out what they were doing so that, hey, I didn't have to reinvent the wheel. I didn't have to figure every single piece of the ministry out. I can ask questions. I can get feedback. I can see what works, what doesn't work. And I think that's the thing that has really helped me the most of being part of CSN is that I have been able to continue to have these relationships where I can run different ideas, different things that I had been doing in the ministry by these men and women. And that helped me to be a better leader, to avoid some mistakes, not burn out my volunteers. There's so many benefits, as you know, that came through these relationships. So that's one of the biggest benefits of being part of CSN. But in 2013, I think it was, I became one of the board members and actually became the treasurer, which has been a real joy just serving the ministry in that way. And it's not a major role, but it was one that I really enjoyed.
But as a highest honor, I mean, you think about it, you are the treasurer of the stewardship people in the country. I mean, I'm a treasurer on a few boards, but I'm not the treasurer. It'd be like being the treasurer for like the Federal Reserve almost.
Well, I don't know. I don't know about that. And besides, it wasn't that much treasure to manage, but I did try to do a good job with it, no matter how much God entrusted to us. But it has been a real joy to serve in that role because it did help us to really improve our annual forums and improve the events that we are doing and just have a bigger impact. And that's been part of what's been great about being part of CSN is that I've had some input into how things were running. And that was just a real honor for me to be part of that. And then 2 years ago, I stepped out of my position at Gateway Church as a stewardship pastor. And for the last 2 years, I felt like God had kind of put me on the sidelines and said, just kind of sit there and wait. And I didn't know what that was about, to be honest. It took some time for me to get clarity, but 2 years later, we met as a board about 3 months ago in June of 2019. And all of us had been feeling for years that we needed to do more. And as we had that meeting, and we all agreed, actually we came in prayerfully, having heard from the Lord that we were supposed to do more. And in doing so, we came ready to start putting a plan in place. And we did. A couple of days later, after spending some time as a board, we came up with a 3-year plan and what to do next. And of course, part of that was we needed somebody to actually do the work because we're all volunteers in the ministry. And it was really difficult to do more than what we were already doing because of a time capacity. And so I was asked by the board, actually by the chairman of the board, Chris Gillard, if I was willing to step in as the president. And I had already been praying about that, really seeking the Lord if this was an opportunity to make it very clear to me. So when Chris approached me and said it was just God saying, okay, this is the time for you to step in back into full-time ministry. So I was really excited about that. I felt like it was an answer to prayer. And that's where I'm at today as a president. I've been serving for a couple of months. And there's a lot to do, but it's been really exciting.
Hold on one second. Everybody have to make an announcement. We have a president of the Christian Stewardship Network, Leo Sabo. Yes, we are so excited about that. That is awesome. And also, but do you see how when you said that you were on the sidelines, God, you were never on the sidelines.
Well, no, I know that now. It felt like it though.
But see, when he's preparing you, but that ministers to someone that's listening right now. They may feel like they're on the sideline. They may feel someone might even be think that God forgot about them or that they're being punished for something. Right. But also when you think that, you know what God's doing a lot of times, what God's doing is he's purifying us. He's burning away anything so that we can just come out and do exactly what he has for us. Right. And I see that in what he's doing. Like when I would watch and means how you handle people, how you talk to people, even before when you were doing this, even when you were at Gateway, and I just see all the progression. And then now when I see you in this role, as Chris, when he puts you in this role, when you see this, you actually see God's hand upon you and what's in store for people and blessing people.
Oh, thank you.
And I look forward to that.
That means a lot. Thank you.
And now I'd like to look at, some things. What are some steps? You said there's a 3-year plan. What are some steps that would benefit people or different things that will help in the area of with the Christian Stewardship Network in a new role?
Yeah. So, our mission at CSN has always been to encourage, to teach, and to connect stewardship and church leaders, and to help them build and run healthy stewardship ministries. And CSN has really been instrumental in helping a lot of leaders. We have been kind of a best-kept secret in many ways because we have been a fairly small organization. I mean, we've been run by about 5 or 6 board members over the last almost 20 years now. And in that capacity, all of these men and women that were part of this board were individuals that were serving in stewardship ministries in their own church. So they had a full-time job managing a whole ministry. Most of these were from mega churches, so not just a small church, but large churches, many of them with multi-campus sites and that kind of thing. So huge responsibilities. And then for them to take some of their time and donate that to CSN to help CSN build this movement and to offer these services of being that iron sharpens iron and one-on-one relationship with upcoming stewardship leaders and even senior pastors, because realize that our target market is not just stewardship leaders. Sometimes the only way a stewardship ministry is going to be built is by getting a hold of that decision maker, either the senior pastor or the executive pastor of a church and helping them to catch a vision for it. So CSN has done that and is continuing to do that, but we've been limited because of our capacity of not being able to do more. We didn't have the resources to do more either. So a lot of what we have put in place over the next 3 years is to begin to just be more intentional, to be that resource for these leaders coming up and also leaders that are already in the ministry. So part of doing that is really being a consistent content aggregator and also a content creator. So part of the things that we're going to do is we're going to have obviously this podcast that's going to come out every couple of weeks. We're going to have a blog coming out every week or every other week. We're also going to continue to develop videos, and we really want to partner with a lot of ministries that are already doing some of this work. We don't want to reinvent the wheel. There's so many people that are part of the CSN network, and also we have organizations, nonprofit organizations that have created some tremendous content that could help these stewardship leaders coming into these ministries to start and run a healthy stewardship ministry. So part of our role at CSN is to be that central place where people can come and learn more about how they can do their job, their stewardship role in their own churches, and how to build and run a healthy stewardship ministry. So our desire is to continue to have an ongoing conversation and create a community of like-minded stewardship leaders whose passion is and calling is that they have been called to manage and to stewardship ministries or churches. And our desire long-term is that there would be a stewardship ministry in every church. We feel like that's something that is going to be part of the future, and we feel like God has really called CSN to do that. And it's a humbling thing to realize the impact that could have into the kingdom, but that's why all of us on the board felt so strong that God was saying this is the time to focus and to begin to become that entity, that aggregator of content and that community builder of stewardship leaders.
That is great. Good. I am so excited when I hear that. Two things I just want to that came out when you were saying. One is that you talked about having a healthy church. What is your definition of a healthy church?
Well, when I think about healthy church, there are obviously a lot of aspects to it, but I think one of the main things as I think about it from where I'm sitting today and just my experience, I've been a Christian since I was born pretty much. I grew up in the church and I've been part of very healthy churches and churches that were not so healthy. And I think all of us who have been part of church for any amount of time can attest to that. If you've been a member in more than one church, you've probably seen some things done well and some things done not so well. But when I think about a healthy, I really think about the spiritual health of the church, and I'm talking about the individuals. You can have a great leader, you can have great worship, you can have a great experience, but if people themselves are not spiritually mature over time, if they don't mature, if they don't grow, if their discipleship is not intentional, then what happens is people over time will kind of wander off, or they become somewhat of a lukewarm Christian who comes to church maybe once or twice a month, even gives maybe from time to time, but they're really not showing that disciple quality of being not just a person who receives, but also somebody who gives. And a healthy church is where every member in that church is contributing in some way. They're part of a community. They're giving and they're taking, but it goes both ways. And in my mind, one of the best ways to see whether a church is spiritually mature is the giving. When you look at the giving, that gives you an insight into whether people are truly committed. Because the last thing that people usually commit to anyone, especially to a church, is their wallet. If they don't trust you, they're not going to give. If they don't trust you fully, they're only going to give a little bit, and only if there's really a ton of pleading going on and capital campaigns and things that they can really say, okay, I'll give to that, but I'm not giving to the general fund. And every time I've spoken to a senior leader at a church, especially a senior pastor, I always ask the question, how is your giving? If 20% of your congregation gives consistently and the other 80 only give from time to time, then it's telling me that 80% of your congregation struggles with trust. And if they struggle with trusting you as a church, either the problem is with the church or the problem is with their heart, and their problem is that they don't want to trust God. And as a pastor, I had a heart for really helping people understand their full identity and who God made them to be, and to be full in for Christ. And the only way that I knew that was true is if I could have a candid conversation with them and ask them, how's your giving? Are you consistently giving to the Lord? Do you give him the first and best portion? Or is he something kind of an afterthought? Is the church not important to you when you think about giving? Do you control where you tithe, or do you just release it because it's not yours? So there are many things that I think will define healthy, but I think this is one of the ways that we can look, is a church healthy? And the giving will really show you that.
Gotcha. And then what resources do we have at CSN to help people in having a healthy stewardship ministry?
I think first and foremost, you realize that there are a couple of events that we do. We have 2 live events that we do. One of them is called the Stewardship Impact Workshop. And this is one of the best things I've ever seen as far as helping a leader in the church, whether it's a senior pastor or even a stewardship leader, to learn what stewardship ministry is all about. Because there is a misunderstanding sometimes of what stewardship is. Stewardship can be very broadly defined. And as far as stewardship, it could be thought of as a fundraising ministry or a giving, generous ministry. And it can be some of those things. But if it's not accurately and fully defined, you can actually be running a ministry that's only partially successful. And people may look at it as a ministry where you only go there if you need help, if you're in debt, or you go there if they want more money. And we never want to define a stewardship ministry simply or just by one or two different ways, by saying, well, it's a fundraising ministry, or it's a ministry to the poor, or it's a ministry to those that are in debt. No, stewardship is a life journey that we take. And it has a lot of aspects. I know at your church, you guys talk about time, talent, and treasure. So stewardship is all of that. We at Gateway, when I was serving there, we specifically focused overwhelmingly so on finances, money, treasure, because we knew that that was the strongest stronghold that people had. And if we can talk to them about that and help them in that, we knew that it was going to reciprocate in other areas of their life. And then, of course, we still touched on managing your time and your talent as well. So we didn't not teach on those things, but we were overwhelmingly talking about finances, because this is one of the things that people struggle with the most, and the one that the enemy has the most influence in. So it is an issue and an area that has to be continually talked about, discipled on, and it's something that our heart starts to pull toward treasure for the wrong reason, and we need to continue to surrender that to the Lord. So it's part of that reason why this whole ministry is so important, because the SI workshop allows people to have a full understanding of what the ministry is all about and gives them a vision plus a how-to approach to building that ministry. So that's an important part of what CSN does. I don't think I've seen anything that compares to this specific content that has been developed by 2 of our board members, Chris Gillard and Dave Briggs, that does such a great job of helping people understand stewardship ministry. And then the other one, of course, is the annual forum, which is kind of like our Super Bowl. It's where we spend 3 days together. And like you said at the beginning, being part of this group of people and being able to ask questions, have conversations, talk about the challenges of ministry, and having that support is a vital part of being a stewardship pastor. You are among your peers, you're among your friends, you're among your co-workers, so to speak, that are in the trenches with you. And that helps in helping you to get encouraged, to get connected, and of course, to learn new practices and things that you can do better in building and running a healthy ministry in your own church.
And as far as stewardship impact, I've said this so many times on my podcast as well. That is the best starting block, or best block to come and learn best practices, so you can go back to your church and be able to implement something that following week. That is a great example. And then again, you said the Super Bowl is the Christian Stewardship Network. When we have our annual conference, that is a great time to not only learn from the people that are speaking, but also you learn there's a lot of peer-to-peer learning. Mm-hmm. And the Bible says iron sharpens iron, just learning from the people that you're sitting with at your tables, and just finding the people that also are in your area, and you keep having a longer term relationship with them than just at that conference. Yeah. So in conclusion, though, I'd just like to have us just talk for a moment about, the CSN Christian Stewardship Network entering a new season, and then you just telling us just a little bit about what's in store for the Christian Stewardship Network.
Yeah, glad to do that. So CSN really wants to fulfill its mission, and that's to identify as many stewardship leaders and church leaders that need to know this information and then get connected, right? We want to encourage, we want to teach and connect stewardship and church leaders to build and run healthy stewardship ministries. And the way we're going to do that is very strategically. We're going to start by just being consistent with coming out with content and then connecting people to other people. So one of the things that we're going to do is launch an actual membership. We want people to be part of a membership of a network of Christian stewardship leaders, and then having these leaders stay connected, not just through an annual event or a once in a while event, but staying connected throughout the year. One of the things that I think that's most important for a leader starting a stewardship ministry is knowing and having someone that they can walk along with, and not just one, but maybe half a dozen or so other people that have already walked this road. It makes a tremendous amount of difference and benefit to them if they know the landmines to avoid, the potholes that they can, skip right over. And I think this is something that if they don't have it, unfortunately, it may actually stunt the growth of the ministry. It may even portray to their leaders that this is not a ministry that's going to be effective in their church. And so what I want to encourage is anyone that's listening just to realize that part of us becoming a community of stewardship leaders is that we are still very few in number. It's unfortunate, but even 17 years later that I've served in stewardship ministry, I still see that we're still a few compared to, compare us to like a worship ministry in a church or a children's ministry. Every church has a children's ministry. Every church has a worship ministry. Not every church has a stewardship ministry. So we're still, I hate to say this, but we're still infants. But our desire at CSN is to really spread this message out far and wide by leveraging every relationship that we have, connecting with every partner that we can find that's also believes in what we believe in. And by doing so is really connecting through content, connecting through events, having quarterly meetings in different regions of the country. That's one of the visions that we have, is to do more than one annual event, but have many forums going on throughout the year. And really just empower the people that are in the trenches to come forward with everything that they know. What I love about you, George, is that you are trying new things at your church all the time. And when I meet with you, you're telling me what's next and what you're doing and what's worked and what didn't work. And here's the thing, I benefit from hearing that from you. But what if we could take that and open it up to everybody that's part of our forum or part of our membership? And now every voice has an opportunity to come and say, hey, I learned this. And we can gather that information and make it available to people coming in and people that are building this ministry. So I think one of the things that we can do is to be more intentional about receiving all of this testimonies, all of that experience, and making a way for different people to come forward and share that so that we can all benefit. So I love that, because I think that's the biggest part of what CSN is called to do, is just to bring people into a conversation and help us all become better. Because we're all learning, we're all growing through this, and why not share that? And together, as we share it, we'll all become better at doing this ministry.
That is awesome. And also, all that information is available by going to ChristianStewardshipNetwork.com.
Right.
And just look, there's a brand new website that's up that shows a lot of good information. So you want to go there. And is there anything else you'd like to say before we close, Leo?
Actually, yes, George. I wanted to add to what you just mentioned about our website by inviting anyone that's listening to do a couple of things. First, I'd like you to take your phone or your tablet or laptop and go to our website, ChristianStewardshipNetwork.com, and subscribe to our newsletter. Every week, you'll receive new content, blogs, videos, podcasts, and much more. And the second thing is connect with us on social media. We are on all social media channels, and we'd love it if you would follow us and engage with us there. Let us know, how can CSN serve you and your church? Also, like and join our Facebook group. This is a community of like-minded leaders who share their knowledge and experience with each other. This is where you can ask questions and get answers to the challenges of leading a stewardship ministry. And finally, the best thing you could do is join us for one of our live events. The Stewardship Impact Workshop and the CSN Annual Forum are coming up in March of 2020, and we'd love to have you join us. Next year's forum is going to be incredible. You don't want to miss it. And if you want to register, there's a link in the show notes, or you can go to ChristianStewardshipNetwork.com/live events. And the last thing I want to say, George, is just I'm excited about the future of CSN. I'm excited about people like you who are doing this ministry with us. And I hope more people will join us to do great things through CSN and really to build God's kingdom by building healthy stewardship ministries in every church.
And we look forward, and also want to let you know, as a champion, and can't speak for the board members, but I feel they feel the same way. We're here to support, and we're all here to work together, and it is a blessing, and I look forward to everything that we're going to be doing together in the future.
Thank you, George. I appreciate that, and I appreciate you, my friend. And to you, our listener, I want to thank you for joining us for the Stewardship Leader podcast. Until next time, remember, God has called you to be the best steward you can be. So be that faithful steward, but go further. Teach and lead others to do the same.